Well, then, very briefly, let me speak about one of the more recent developments in the sphere of neurology, the implantation of electrodes in the brain. This, of course, has been done on a large scale in animals, and in a few cases it's been done in cases of the hopelessly insane. And it is, anybody who's watched the behavior of rats with electrodes planted in different centers must come away from this experience with the most extraordinary doubts about what on earth is in store for us if ever this is got hold of by a dictator. If I saw not long ago some rats in Magoon's laboratory at UCLA. There were two sets of them, one with electrodes planted in a pleasure center. And these rats were, the technique was that they had a bar which they pressed, which turned on a very small current for a short space of time, which we had a wire connected with their electrode, and which stimulated this pleasure center, which was evidently absolutely ecstatic, because these rats were pressing the bar 18,000 times a day. Apparently, if you kept them from pressing the bar for a day, they would press the bar 36,000 times on the following day, and would fall till they fell down in complete exhaustion. And they would neither eat nor be interested in the opposite sex, and would just go on pressing this bar. Then the most extraordinary rats were those where the electrode was planted halfway between a pleasure and a pain center, and where evidently the result was a kind of mixture of the most wonderful ecstasy in being on the rack at the same time. And you would see the rat sort of looking at its bar and sort of saying, to be or not to be, that is the question. And finally would approach and do it, and then go back with this awful, if I can humanize or anthropomorphize, he was feeling something terribly mixed, and he would wait for quite a long time before pressing the bar again, but he would always press it again. This was the extraordinary thing. And I noticed in this most recent issue of Scientific American, there's a very interesting article on electrodes in the brains of chickens, where the technique is very ingenious. You sink into their brains a little socket with a screw on it, and the electrode then can be screwed deeper and deeper into the brain stem, and you can test at any moment, according to the depth which goes in fractions of a millimeter, of what you're stimulating. And these creatures are not merely stimulated by wire. They're fitted with a miniaturized radio receiver weighing less than an ounce, which is attached to them, so that they can be communicated with at a distance. They can run about in the barnyard, and you can press the button, and this particular area of the brain to which the electrode's been screwed down to will be stimulated, and you will get these fantastic phenomena that a sleepy chicken will suddenly get up and rush about, or an active chicken will suddenly sit down and go to sleep, or a hen will suddenly start sitting as though it were hatching out an egg, or a rooster will start fighting, or will suddenly go into a state of extreme depression. The whole picture of the absolute control of the drives is terrifying. And in the few cases in which this has been done with very sick human beings, the effects are evidently very remarkable too. I was talking last summer in England to Gray Walter, who is the most eminent exponent of the electroencephalogram techniques in England, and he was telling me that he's seen hopeless inmates of asylums with these things in their heads, and that these people were suffering from uncontrollable depression, and they'd had the electrodes inserted into something resembling, evidently, the pleasure center of the rat. Anyhow, when they felt too bad, they just pressed a button, the battery in their pocket, and he said the result was fantastic. The mouse would go down, would suddenly turn up, and they would evidently feel very cheerful and happy. So that here again one sees the most extraordinary revolutionary techniques which are now available to us.
Transhumanism is a movement which advocates the use of emerging technologies to enhance and guide human evolution. The movement itself is public relations. It's a marketing campaign. Its job is to acclimate the public to ideas such as implantable microchips. Now, if you remember, not too long ago, even the existence of implantable microchips was a crazy idea. I mean, these things were unheard of. This is the realm of conspiracy theory. But now let's take a look at the scientists who are developing these technologies that the transhumanists so lovingly talk about.
In 2002, the implant that I had then was positioned in my nervous system here.
Alright, at this point we've accepted the fact that Dr. Warwick put an implant in himself back in 2002. Now let's move on to some more heavy stuff, like the relationship between artificial intelligence machines and humans. Now we all know what happened in the movie Terminator. How do we get around such a problem?
They say, well, perhaps we could avoid this issue by having human beings themselves become intellects. In practice, that would mean like adding components to your head, more chips on top of chips, sort of thing.
Now wait a minute, I didn't even want to get an implantable microchip in the first place. Now we're talking about brain chips. Putting a chip in my actual brain. You can't tell me that people are actually going to want to do this.
A lot of people who do want to upgrade themselves, no question about that. And there'll be commercial interests and political interests supporting those groups. There's a lot of money to be made here, a lot of power.
I'm not even satisfied with the power structures that are present in this world right now, let alone giving the power of my brain away to somebody. And did you notice the buzzword you used in there, upgrade? As if you're going to be better if you do this?
I mean, imagine you're a Terran and your next door neighbour starts going cyborgy, right? Starts adding components, and then suddenly the person next door is capable of learning a human language in just like, in seconds.
And this, of course, is the old marketing trick of snob appeal. But this time, your neighbor hasn't bought a new riding mower. He's added a brain chip to his head, which allows him to think in ways that you can't even imagine. He's become a super intelligent cyborg. At this point, transhumanism tries to sell you on the concept of abandoning humanity altogether. They want you to become what is known as a post-human. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to keep up in the new society.
But I think when implants become more acceptable, as they are becoming bit by bit, so such people, the humanists that want to stay human, the Terrans maybe, as Hugo would call them, I can't see them ultimately having much power, because at the end of the day, their intellectual capabilities will be so inferior to cyborgs, those that have implants and upgrades, that the cyborgs will be able to outthink the subspecies that still are human.
Ah, so humans are a subspecies now. Can anybody see where this is going? These guys have a serious God complex. They are sick individuals. But you are even sicker if you choose to follow them.
So imagine a young woman, she's just given birth, and then she needs to make the decision. Is she going to have her baby modified? Is she going to turn that baby into a cyborg, or effectively an intellect? So say she decides to do that. So this, hypothetically, this grain of sand, in a sense, that's been nanoteched, is inserted into the human brain, that baby's brain, and it integrates itself into the brain. So that baby, in effect, is no longer human. So that woman, in a sense, has killed her baby. Killed in the sense the baby's no longer human. It's effectively an artellect. It's an artellect in human disguise.
Okay, first hydrogen bombs and now killing babies. This is the kind of expert I should be listening to. Now let's see what Dr. Warwick says about anybody who has the audacity to actually resist this.
So the future for an ordinary everyday human, I guess there'll be some sort of subspecies, just like we have cows now, so we'll have humans in the future. There'll be other creatures, other species, cyborgs, intelligent machines that are the dominant life forms on Earth. And as a cyborg, if a human came to see me and it starts making silly noises, a bit like a cow does now. If a cow comes to me and says, moo, 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 I'm not going to say, yeah, that's a great idea, I'm going to do what you tell me. So it will be with a human. They'll come in and start making these silly noises that we call speech and human language and so on. And I'm these trivial noises, I'm not going to do those silly things. Why should I? This creature's absolutely stupid in comparison to me.
And there you have the transhumanist sales pitch, brought to you, of course, by the experts. And if you didn't know, transhumanism is just the new face of eugenics, which you should look into. All this talk about super intelligence and how great it's going to be a cyborg is simply bait. This is an advertisement. Don't believe it for 1 second. This time, your brain is the product, and how can you possibly put a price on that? The fact of the matter is, you don't get to program the brain chip, so how do you know what it does? The general public hasn't been made aware of the transhumanist movement yet, but it's my contention that the mass marketing of this movement will happen in the near future. Consider this video a forewarning. The transhumanists also push the concept of downloading consciousness into a computer. This makes the concept of the movie The Matrix a reality. I'm not even going to try to explain the reasons why that's a bad idea. Let's just hear what Dr. Warwick has to say about it.
Then if a machine is passing down signals that keep you completely happy, then why not be part of the Matrix? I really do think Neo in the Matrix trying to destroy things, he's a bit of a party pooper, and life for humans in a Matrix could be really cool.
Our constitutional journey did not stop then, and it must not stop now, Judge. And we'll be faced with equally consequential decisions in the 21st century. Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing, right. Just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
Data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it.
Here he comes.
Careful.
All clear. That's it.
Heart rate stable. If we don't use human DNA now, someone else will.
Regulators and politicians, they tear us to pieces. I'm gonna go to jail for this.
This won't be human. Not entirely. It's coming out.
It's not due for months.
It's slippery. What was that?
A mistake.
It's empty. Clive? Clive? Clive?
What happened?
It's alive. Get out.
Get out of there. I'm gonna gas it.
Wait.
In 3, 2, 1.
I said don't.
Elsa, it's dangerous.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
Nobody can see what we made.
It's aging fast. Days within a matter of minutes.
What are we supposed to do? Lock her away from the world? We changed the rules. Crossed the line.
What's the worst that could happen?
Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people.
Andy Justin tested positive. Let's do a Q test. Okay.
Whoa. What is that?
Who is this new device?
I'm Q, and I'm here to protect the family.
Hey, that's my job.
I'm a smart home testing lab. I'm fast and super accurate.
Please be negative.
Don't worry, I got this.
Whoa! Shh, they're coming.
Yes!
We're really warming up to you, Q.
Just wait till you see what else I can do.
So does the data about my DNA, my brain, my body, my life, does it belong to me, or to some corporation, or to the government, or perhaps to the human collective? We humans should get used to the idea that we are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. And if indeed we succeed in hacking and engineering life, this will be not just the greatest revolution in the history of humanity. This will be the greatest revolution in biology since the very beginning of life 4 billion years ago. For 4 billion years, nothing fundamental changed in the basic rules of the game of life. All of life, for 4 billion years, dinosaurs, amoebas, tomatoes, humans, all of life was subject to the laws of natural selection and to the laws of organic biochemistry. But this is now about to change.
Amy!
Don't go in there!
Oh my God.
We're all very happy to have you here, Lee.
I imagine that's not exactly true.
Doctor, this is Lee Weathers from corporate.
I'm just looking for some information about Morgan.
Morgan was our third attempt, our little breakthrough. It's the next step in evolution. It's bioengineered with synthetic DNA. Within a month, walking and talking. Within 6 months, it exceeded our wildest expectations.
I'd like to discuss the incident if that's okay.
She had a tantrum. There was joy in her heart before we shoved her back in that box.
You feeling a little sad, Morgan?
Yes.
Do you like it here?
Yes.
What do you like about it?
I like my friends.
Do you think they treat you like a friend?
I mean, you think it's normal for friends to lock each other in cages?
What would you do if I recommended that you should not be allowed to leave this room? What if I recommended that you be terminated?
We should end this.
Answer me! What would you do?
Where's Morgan?
Initiating lockdown.
What you don't understand is
10.
Morgan is still evolving.
9.
The people in this house are in danger.
8.
It needs to be terminated.
7. 6.
Don't be afraid.
5. 4. 3.
I'm starting to feel like myself.
It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste.
But here's something really interesting. Macron kept away from Putin after refusing COVID's test over DNA concerns. Emmanuel Macron was forced to stay away from Vladimir Putin after refusing a PCR test amid fears Russian doctors would get their hands on the French president's DNA. And he's actually right. That's what they do. That's been a lot of what this is all about. You know those swabs they put down to your brain to see if you've got the COVIDs? What do? They take your identification and they put you into a system. They've actually got your DNA now.
What is the real purpose of the PCR test if not to keep me safe and healthy?
Well, it's to collect the genetic data. And I mean, I'd like to direct people to an article on the Mayo Clinic from May of last year where they basically admit to this. They talk about, hey, we're going to be launching PCR tests in this country. You've probably never heard about it before, but it's a common test used in microbiology. They talk about that it's a polymerase chain reaction. PCR
However you say that.
I can't say that. Anyway, all that is copying and pasting DNA codons. That's basically what it is. And in PCR, you can copy, paste. So they look for patterns in your genetic makeup of these different codons that make you what you are as a human being, the diseases you have, your, everything, your hair color, et cetera, et cetera. You can also do it with other species like viruses and hydras, if you will. But it goes on to say, this is the part that's very alarming, is they say, why are we collecting DNA for testing COVID-19 when SARS-CoV-2 is RNA? It's single helix. So why would you use a double helix test? It was used in HIV because it was a double helix virus. Doesn't make any sense to use it for the SARS-CoV-1 or 2 because that's single helix. And they go on to say is that the structure of DNA can tell you what organism is being looked at. In the case of humans, PCR can identify a person using his or her genetic signature. In the case of COVID-19, researchers have published more than 100 genomes collected from patients to identify the key features of the virus that caused this disease, SARS-CoV-2. Now, this was back in May. If you click on the link in the Mayo Clinic, it'll take you to the NIH website. It looks like they've completed over 1.3 million Americans' genomes, and it's available in a public database, not just to America, but to China, Japan, and all the world. This is a complete violation of the Constitution and our Fifth Amendment. Not only can the government not take they can't take our property without due process of law.
Right.
They just took our beingness, the code that God gave us, and it's available to countries around the globe.
Given the ability to re-engineer bodies and brains and minds, then our imagination too is up for grabs. So I can tell you what sapiens like us would like to do with things like bioengineering or direct brain-computer interfaces. They would like to extend their lifespans, to be more healthy, to be more beautiful. But once you change the basic parameters of the human brain and of the human mind, I have absolutely no idea what the new kinds of entities would like to do with these technologies. I mean, so far in history, what we have seen is humans just like us changing the world outside them. So they cut down forests, they build bridges, they build factories, all kinds of things. But the real change now is that we are gaining the ability to start re-engineering not the world outside us, but the world inside us, inside the body and the brain. By definition, you don't know where this is leading because you're still stuck with your brain. It's happening on three fronts. There is biological engineering, which is taking the body as we know it, as natural selection shaped it, and basically speeding up natural selection. And we are beginning to see all kinds of interventions on the genetic level, all kinds of interventions with the growing new organs. So this is one front, biological engineering, which is the most conservative because it still stays with the basic building blocks of organisms as we have known them for 4 billion years. The second approach is more radical, and this is to start combining organic and inorganic stuff. So direct brain-computer interfaces, replacing organic hands with bionic hands, adding to the body a second immune system, which is not organic but an inorganic immune system made up behalf of millions of tiny nanorobots inside your body that diagnose cancer. But you still, the main command and control center is still your organic brain. The third and most radical way is to completely give up, completely abandon organic stuff and create completely inorganic life forms. Whether this can be done or not is an open question. The biggest open question as yet, so far, in the life sciences, is the question of consciousness. We have no idea what consciousness is, what it does, how it emerges. The common assumption is that somehow the mind, consciousness, emerges from the brain, and if we hack the brain, and if we understand how billions of neurons create subjective experiences, then there should be no barrier for recreating these kinds of experiences based on silicon and not carbon, based on computers and not brains.
How long until we get to his estate? We've been flying over his estate for the past 2 hours.
Caleb, I'm just gonna throw this out there so it's said, okay? You're freaked out. You're freaked out at me meeting me, having this conversation in this room at this moment, right? But can we just get past that? The whole employer-employee thing?
It's good to meet you, Nathan.
It's good to meet you too, Caleb. This building isn't a house. It's a research facility. And I want to talk to you about what I'm researching. You want to see something cool? You are dead center of the greatest scientific event in the history of man.
Hello.
Hi. Do you have a name?
Ava.
Answer me this. How do you feel about her?
Her AI is beyond doubt.
No, nothing analytical. Just how do you feel?
I feel that she's amazing.
Good.
Do you want to be my friend?
Of course.
Will it be possible?
Why would it not be? Did you know that Nathan brought me here to test you?
Caleb. You're wrong.
Wrong about what?
Nathan, you shouldn't trust anything he says.
Does Ava actually like you? Or is she just pretending to like you? Self-awareness, manipulation, sexuality.
Are you attracted to me?
Now, if that isn't true AI, what is?
Caleb, here's something I want to show you.
Can we talk about the lies you've been spinning me? What lies?
Today, I'm going to test you.
Why me?
Caleb, you have to help me.
What was the real test? You.
Is it strange to have made something that hates you? What will happen to me if I fail your test?
Truth was never the highest priority of human society. It was the highest priority of some individuals, but never of society as a whole, because society as a whole does not function on the basis of truth.
The world is a lie.